Good evening. My name is Weronika Czyżewska-Poncyliusz. I'm the member of the Borderland Foundation team and director of the Dilemma Academy program. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our third of the series of the Dilemma webinars. And before I hand it over to our distinguished speakers and Anna Gevorgian as a moderator for today, I just wanted to say first few words about the Academy itself for those of you who are joining us for the first time. So Dilemma. It's a dialogue mobile academy which was created between Central Europe, the Caucasus, and the Balkans. It is mobile and it is a very special kind of academy, not affiliated with any university. The core of the academy is a group of writers, researchers, artists, activists who 3 years ago decided together, inspired by a very difficult situation in our regions, but most of all by a need of connection, communication, solidarity, and co-creation between us. And since then, we are traveling from Yerevan, Tbilisi, Uzhhorod, Krasnogruda, meeting in different formats. We do have these mobile academies meetings, but we do have also summer schools, residency program, and bigger and bigger platform, which for now is led by 4 institutions, by Borderland Foundation, by the Institute of Central European Strategy in Uzhhorod, by Armenian Pen Club, and Literature Initiative Georgia. And this webinar series is our way of expanding the audience and the community of the Dilemma Academy. And as with every format, for us, the main thing is to meet and discuss the most important challenging dilemmas of today. And that's why also the title and subject of today's meeting. I hope you will enjoy the discussion and join the conversation at the end, and you will stay in this community of the mobile Dilemma Academy for longer with us. So I wish you a great conversation.
Thank you very much, Veronica. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Anna Gevorgian. I'm a researcher at the Center for Civilization and Cultural Studies. My academic background is in Iranian studies, and I do research on Iran's foreign policy, but also on internal dynamics of Iran. And so the topic and the idea to have such kind of conversation within the Dilemma Academy came across when I was complaining in our group of several colleagues and friends, majority of whom are also the members of Dilemma Academy, saying that ethically it's very difficult for me to see how we have also in Armenian context these polarized versions of analysis when it comes to demonstrations in Iran. It was during January demonstrations. And of course, we have the same situation when it comes to analyzing also war against Iran. So every time there are demonstrations in Iran, there are different kind of explanations why people are on the streets demanding what? Demanding change of the regime or demanding reforms within the regime. So it's a topic very interesting, I guess, also in the context of war also. And we have today distinguished panelists with us, and all the panelists also will have an introductory words about this topic, and then I will also have questions for them, but also, dear participants, you will have also opportunity to write your questions in Q&A, and I will read them. And so let me, first of all, Wtodek. She's at the Center for Eastern European Studies. She has the Central Asian specialization. She's interested in national ideologies, identity politics, modernization, and post-colonial studies. Beside her academic career, she works as publicist and reporter, and she's author of several books. The last one, The Rebels from Afghanistan, was published in 2022 and is about Afghan women's rights activists before and after the Taliban takeover. Ludwika, thanks for being with us. Siyavush Shahabi, a writer and journalist who writes about politics, society, and developments in Iran with a focus on social movements, people's everyday lives, and the critique of structures of domination. And he works also to build bridges of solidarity between Iran's labor movement and trade unions and labor organizations at the international level. Thank you, Siyavush, for being with us. And writer and editor and translator Babak Vahedi, who is now based in Canada, whose work is driven by a lifelong inquiry into the meaning of the liberty. His work as a journalist and editor serves as a persistent challenge to the status quo, transforming complex global philosophies into local instruments for change. So before I will give you 10 minutes each to have an introduction to the main topic of our discussion, let me say a few words. What kind of maybe peculiarities has Armenian context when it comes to analyzing Iranian developments from the Armenian side? So for Armenian security, having a neighbor, Iran, with whom we have a very important mutual border, and only 4 neighbors and only 2 have closed borders with Azerbaijan, and because of that reason we have also closed border with Turkey, and so we have only 2 open borders with our neighbors Iran and Georgia. And only this fact makes Iran's relations with Armenia very important for the security overall atmosphere of Armenia. But after the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, and especially after Azerbaijan attacked Armenia's territories in 2022, we had even more sensitive security atmosphere where the countries and the capitals who were very much in line when it came to security goals of Armenia, mainly territorial integrity and not using force, were Tehran, Brussels, and Washington, and not Moscow, which was and still is formally a strategic partner of our weapons in Iran. The first reality, another vulnerability of our security system. And looking through these lines, it's very difficult to, from the one hand, not to see the challenges the demonstrations and the war will bring to the region, not only to Iran. From the other hand, not to see all the challenges the people in Iran have. Making it even more maybe simple. It's very difficult to me as an analyst and as a woman living in Armenia, work and wearing whatever I want. Demonstrations in Iran create security challenges not only for Iran but also for the region, and this is something bad for Armenia and Armenia's security. And not remembering that women like me in Iran, and not only women, to choose whatever they want for their professional and individual lives. And so this is dilemma I have as an analyst and as a citizen of Armenia. And during this discussion, I want you to start with your own dilemmas as an academician working in Europe and dealing with questions of women's rights in countries outside of the Europe, as Iranians living outside of Iran, and watching all this, as Shirin Ebadi stated, too much noise but too few voices about Iranian people and their demands. And so, without undue delay, I want to start with you, Dr. Ludwika, if you don't mind.
Yes, once again, hello. I'm afraid my connection isn't very good, but I hope it works good enough in order I can be understood by all the participants of our seminar. So, to me, the most striking thing connected to the approach the Western societies have toward what's going on in Iran is this very, let's say, orientalizing kind of approach. And in most of discussions, we hear questions like, do America has a plan for Iran? Why Europe does not have any plan for Iran? I mean, neither America nor Europe are they are not subjects of the situation. The only agent which should have a plan for Iran, this is Iranians. This is Iranian nation, and it has to be repeated as often as possible, because one thing is to help the Iranian nation to fight for their rights, but it has nothing to do with a plan for the Iranian future. And of course, we had so many examples of this orientalizing approach. We've seen how it has ended in Afghanistan in 2021. After 20 years, we are back to the situation the Western troops were supposed to fight. Of course, America, when they were withdrawing from Afghanistan, they pretended that the plan was not to build the democratic society, and the only reason they intervened was to fight terrorism. But still, terrorism is still, I mean, terrorist organizations are still there. Afghan people are still being killed in bombs and terrorist attacks. And the situation with women's rights is really bad. And of course, the reason for this war was not to help the Iranian people, even though Netanyahu and Trump tried to impose this kind of narrative. But with Trump, it's quite difficult to follow his argumentation, because he's like changing his mind like several times a day. But still, the most important thing is just to accept the very fact that Iranians are the best people to decide what should happen in Iran. And of course, it cannot be confused with the fact that let's do the Iranian regime what they want to do. Because I mean, these are not the same problems. So, like, accepting the very fact that these are Iranians who have to choose the solutions is not equal to giving free hand to the regime to kill its people, to hang innocent people for violating rules which are not even I mean, for things which are like officially not even forbidden by the Iranian law. But to me, for the start, I think this is the main problem, that the West and of course Poland. Sometimes we in Poland we won't even be more Western than the West, because as Edward Said used to say, yes, the very problem of Orientalism is just this the will to be the West, yes, and Poland has a very complex image of itself as part of the West, and this is why sometimes we are being even more West than the West, yes. And of course, we are kind of affected by the very same way of perceiving people. We understand not to be the part of this, let's say, Western family, which is kind of divide and rule approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And maybe another important aspect of Orientalization when it comes to the protests within Iran was the fact that the majority of the Western outlets, and in that case also in Armenian context, they were saying that demanding freedom isn't something Iranian people want. So if someone in Iran, within Iran, is demanding more freedoms, is something that is brought from outside. So it's something Western. Siavush, I am reading your posts on Facebook on these topics and how you criticize people, also leftists, who perceive all the developments in Iran from the lens of this Orientalism. And sometimes they want to be critical towards Orientalism and are ending up being even more Orientalistic than people who are not seeing the demands of the Iranian people. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is really an honor for me to be here and hearing this opening discussion. It's very interesting always for me as someone that is struggling with this topic a lot as a political refugee in the West, actually. And the picture that they create about Iran and the demonstration, protest, and this struggle for change in this country, it's like erasing 150 years history, actually. It's not just something each time that people started demonstrating. We have some kind of narratives that they just like to externalize this demonstration. And as you mentioned, it also saying like, this is something imposed. It's something coming from somewhere else. It has nothing to do with the reality of life in these societies, obviously. As someone who were involved since I was 17 years old, involving with children rights movement in Iran, with the women movement, with worker movement. When I came to the West as a refugee, I was shocked that how they're picturing Iran, how they are seeing my country. And everything is just reduced to geopolitics. Everything has reduced to what Americans says, what Western governments are saying, what they wanted. Actually, I found that it's a very conservative, very right-wing discussion here, not as we're talking about the society. It's just two different estates. They have some issues together on geopolitics, and the whole society reduced to these two topics, and nothing else is matter. Like the life of these people by no means is not matter. When they're talking about women in Iran, it's not matter that we have a history, we have century of history on patriarchy in this country, books, poems. It doesn't matter just. And it's just reduced what happened at 79 and after that what happened. And we have two sides. One that is just talking about how Islam is bad, how patriarchy is bad in this country, what mullahs are saying, and you have another narrative that they want to just saying like we have their own culture. it's their own culture and we have to respect it. So it's just something that cannot be really described what these people are fighting for it. And it's this, very deep orientalistic pictures, a fantasy that they are creating from these countries. It's not just Iran. The whole region, the whole west of Asia has been pictured like this always. But I think in the past few years, by, this movement with the many refugees because of the war, because of the economic situation, moved to Europe, this reality showed itself more on front of the face of the academia, especially because these people they started talking from themselves to breaking these fantasies that especially academics and journalists in the West they created for themselves about these countries. I have met so many academicians and journalists that they spent years even in Iran, and mostly they were talking about Tehran, Esfahan, and Tabriz. And I was like, well, Iran is a country more than 1,400 cities. You cannot reduce it to one city, and especially Tehran itself. It's big. 8 million, 9 million people are living there. I'm from that city also. In the center, you have a different culture. In north, difference. In south, difference. You cannot reduce all this diversity to one picture about Iran, which this happened a lot, and I try to write about this a lot, fighting back a lot about these things. And when the demonstrations any times happened to Iran, one of my job actually was to just explaining this history. That's how this happens, and how 79 revolution happened, what did not has been answered by the system there. When war happened with Iraq, how has been pushed back generally, but it came return. We had reform state because of answering to something after that, other issues and problems. But now we have this problem with the nuclear program, with the missile program. We have to understand Iran is not a free country that political parties can organize themselves freely in the society. Journalists cannot freely discuss these things. So we have these issues, and we really cannot say 100% that what a 90 million population in this country thinks actually about these problems and these issues, because we are not free, and this is very painful for this society. But of course, the activists, journalists, anybody who is they have a possibility to try to raise their voices and they try to talk about it. I would be very happy in the next rounds to discuss these things more.
To mention this diversity knowledge of them who write about Iran, not acknowledging diversity across the towns, diversity across the national minorities, but also we have also another extreme when mentioning national minorities, there was there were plenty of analysis that whenever the war will start in Iran, so these national minorities will demand to have their own independent states. And so we have also another problem when it comes to voices of Iranians. We have a shortage of voices coming from Iran itself, inside Iran. And when it comes to the diaspora, sometimes the analysis also don't acknowledge the fact that also the voices in the diaspora are very different. There are monarchists, Republicans, right-wing Iranians, leftists, and others. And so, Babak, what is your experience of speaking about the demands of Iranians living in Iran, but also dealing with different kind of voices outside of Iran, and especially in the Iranian diaspora?
Hey, thank you so much. First, before I begin, first, thank you for having me, and thanks for all the people who have joined. I'm honored to be here among you. Uh, because I'm joining from Ottawa, I would like to just take time to pay respect to the Algonquin people, the indigenous owners of this land, and the traditional guardians of this land, which is remains unceded. And also, before I begin, I would like to remember all the brave women, men, and children who bravely sacrificed their lives. I'm always forever indebted uh, to those who lost their lives to the brutal massacre in the last January. So to answer your question and to address the main topic that was brought up for this event. Uh, so since I was invited to this event, I I decided to take notes of what I'm thinking about the situation and what's going on in Iran, with an eye on the question that has been brought up for the event. So we have seen lots of things happening, and the events and the developments are so rapid, and they are happening every day. We are having some sort of big news. So. Uh, the war happened, and then but before that, a month before the U.S.-Israeli attack on the Islamic regime in Iran, we had the January massacre, where like up to upward of 36,000 people are killed in the streets. And those were the protesters who were demanding I believe, demanding the regime change in Iran. And then even before that, we had the digital blackout in Iran, and now we are having that digital blackout again since the start of the war. And I believe today is the 47th day of the digital blackout, where the Iranian people are cut from the rest of the world. So, but every time I went back to my notes, I realized that the analysis kind of stays the same. And also, I see that the same analytical walls are being built um, in the Western narratives and the Western media, Western academia. The same analytical walls that have failed us for nearly 5 decades now. And that's the main thing that you have asked in this event, and you started the event with, which is, in my opinion, which is a very clear and which is a very sharp point to discuss. So, times and again, at times when we have these upheavals happening in Iran, the world's attention comes to Iran, but I believe what I have seen is um, this tends to fall into two traps every single time. So one of these two traps. The first one is, in my opinion, is the oversimplification of the situation. So they see something is happening, they rush to simplify it to be able to fit it into an already existing narrative, an already existing ideology. But what was discussed by my fellow panelists here, and Ludwika mentioned it, Siavash mentioned it, like the idea of these orientalistic views. These are the ones that they get the facts, get an upheaval, they see the news, and then they rush to analyze and oversimplify it to fit it into their narratives. On the other hand, we have the trap of overcomplicating the situation. And this second trap, in my opinion, is the most dangerous one. And this is where in my opinion, it's a sophisticated plea for inaction, because we try to think that the situation is too nuanced to have a prescription for it. It's too nuanced to prescribe a policy. It's too nuanced to have a clear analysis on it. So it's as if the house is on fire. And this is not an analogy that's coming from me. This is something that has been repeatedly in different words, has been repeated in tweets from inside Iran, that the house is on fire, and some people are sitting there and discussing thermodynamics when we just need somebody to kick in the door and just come in, you know. We can discuss about like how that should happen, but this is the second trap, which what I call is the reform part of this the question posed to this event. So to understand this, the whole thing, I would like to also mention something else, that to understand Iran, one thing that is uh, fundamental, in my opinion, is to understand that we must look at the how the regime in Iran operates and what is the nature of that regime. So here, Hannah Arendt has a very clear distinction in the origins of this totalitarianism. So by Arendt's view, we are not dealing with a conventional government here. We are dealing with a movement. And this movement, the Islamic regime, is like a motor. It requires constant motion. It needs to expand. It needs to constantly move forward and find eternal enemies to justify its existence, all sorts of things that we are all familiar with. That this regime is never claims that it's for the people. It's just for the ummah. It's for the for guarding this revolution, this abstract idea of revolution. So, as Arendt observed for the totalitarian movement, the traditional state apparatus, like the parliament and the ministries and presidency, they are merely a shell. So this movement comes in and takes over this shell and starts to use its resources and this shell, this facade of state and governance to only further its own mission and to pursue its own goals, which we have seen time and again that it rarely aligns with the welfare of the people or what people need. So if you understand the regime as a movement in this meaning, the movement has developed a perfectly functioning extractive machine, an apparatus. And we are seeing the Khatam al-Anbiya apparatus, that is big enterprise that is consuming, and it's functional in all sorts of, it's everywhere in the economy, it's everywhere in the foreign policy. And also we are seeing now more than ever, we are seeing what the reformists have brought up, their kind of version of Khatam al-Anbiya, which is the Jihad an-Nasr apparatus, which is a huge apparatus. So what do these apparatus, these machines do? So what they do is they extract every single resources, every single financial resources, natural resources, and eventually human resources, human lives, to gain control and move the regime closer to the ultimate goal of exporting the revolution and fighting against the West, fighting against the Western values, and annihilating the Israel and all the Jews in the world. All these things that are the mission, the core mission of this regime. So here, when we see, and also all of these apparatus, while they are doing the economic work, they are building dams in Africa, they are building power plants in Syria. But in the meantime, they are using that money, and they are also trafficking guns to Hezbollah, and they are, all sorts of their support activities for their proxies. So here, there is no line between these anymore. So the regime becomes that machine, and as we go along, we see that it's become more clear and clear that the regime is just a movement, because as we progress and years go by and people go into the streets, they demand freedom, they demand social change, and they demand economic welfare and economic betterment of their lives. But they see nothing is happening and everything is getting worse. And why is that? Because the machine, the regime, has no intent of operating as a conventional government. It simply is not in its goals. It simply is not in its mission. So, in the logic of the movement, the Iranian people are not citizens. They are merely human material. They are to be sacrificed. And this explains that parasitic nature of the economy. Like every single uh, worker's pension, every single grandmother's pension, worker's salary, in the end, with the inflation and everything, in the end, ends up supporting the mission of the regime and not the people themselves. So, in the end, what happens, to go back to your question with the diaspora, what happens and what we saw in recent developments in Iran and abroad, with the January massacre before that and immediately afterwards, we saw this coming together of the Iranian people, no matter where you are. You're in Iran or in Canada here or in Europe, wherever you are. So Iranian people came together, and this is, in my opinion, is the one weapon that the regime is most afraid of, and it's the one thing that can topple the regime and that can destabilize the regime's structure. So what do? They cut the internet. They cut Iranians from Iranians, and the digital blackout acts as a tactic against the ordinary people. So it humiliates the people. It cuts their livelihood. It cuts them from their loved ones abroad, and also the people outside, Iranians outside of Iran, from their loved ones inside. So all these things, they act as a package that the regime devises uh, to suppress the Iranian people and Iranian demands. And also, let's not forget that uh, Iranian regime and as this movement is not only it's not confined to Iran. This is, as Anna Applebaum and Anna Applebaum's analysis in Autocracy Inc. Clearly shows the relationship between Iran, Venezuela, Russia, and other totalitarian regimes that are ruling different countries in the world right now, and how they are helping each other in lending lending the other country, or giving the other country the technology to suppress the protests. They help each other in bypassing the sanctions and all sorts of collaborations they are doing. And that's one of the reasons that we see in the recent history that a single protest, no matter how huge it is and how united the people are, is not very successful in none of these countries, because they are collaborating with each other. So this is like a hydra. It's a big monster. It has different heads. And I believe regime in Iran is one of the main heads, and so we are not dealing with just even in this meaning, we are not dealing with a government. We are not demanding something from the government, and they are not giving us. We are dealing with a monster that looks outside, and it has roots outside, and it has branches outside. So with the proxies and the friendly totalitarian regimes. So sorry, my opening remarks were a bit long. I believe I'm past my 10 minutes. So I
It's
just
okay.
end here and let you proceed with the rest, and looking forward for the other questions.
Thank you, Babak. Thank you. It was very important to mention all these peculiarities when it comes to Islamic regime and the parallels between Iranian regime and also other authoritarian or totalitarian regimes. Recently, I read the explanation what is IRGC in Iran, and one of the authors were writing that this is like having FSB, Rosatom, Rosgos, Rusgazprom, and also Russia Today all together. And so this is what IRGC is, meaning being in all the spheres of the country. And but I want to also continue our discussion about Iranian plan about the future of Iran. As Ludwika mentioned, we are hearing a lot about Americans' plan, Trump's plan or lack of plans, Israel's plans, and other things. But what can we speak about also different versions of maybe different versions of different Iranian plans within the country? What kind of future the people of Iran will want to have? Of course, we already mentioned that there are different layers, different demands, but can we speak also about one or two joint desires of the people living in Iran? Siavosh, maybe this time start with you.
Well, thank you from Babak for this very nice explanation of opening so many different angles, actually. But this question itself, it's a bit triggers me because uh, I understand that this is a big question everywhere, always repeating there. I have experienced this many times from people when they said, "What do Iranian people think? What do Iranian people want?" It's like we are not talking about one person here.
Yeah.
We're talking about the 90 million people that not just by the Islamic regime, but since constitutional revolution, one basic right has been prevented from them, and that is the right to organize themselves, having a political party, freedom of speech. This has been prevented. This has been oppressed brutally all these 120 years almost. And the 1979 revolution was a kind of answer to this. That we want to create this atmosphere so we can actually discuss what we want, what is our desire. And you have a movement, you have a political movement that it's gaining the power and it's imposing so many ideas. And you have also, um, um, regional issues, global issues that this whoever gained the power have to regulate them, have to manage them, have to somehow, answering to so many issues, which I don't want to go there because it's a different topic. It's a different things to discuss them. But the basic things was, as far as I have been involved with this movement in Iran, was just simply this, that we can talk about our desire. We can talk about basic issues. What is normal in many different societies that we can discuss them. Which it's so complicated. My activities, I started from children rights. We were fighting against death penalty for children. And this was a big topic in Iran, in Kurdistan, because we have been accused that we're talking against religion, which it wasn't, you know. We were trying to just talk about how a state have to act on certain issues, on certain problems in the society. What is the what what actually punishment means in a judicial system? But it's a theocracy. How you are going to deal with theocracy? How they do understand our question? So, you know, when they oppress you and say like, no, this topic is unquestionable. You cannot talk about this. You are not allowed to talk about it. Then what is the space to discuss it? This is the I mean, I give you just this simple example. From here, the desire of regime change, which this word itself in English and for the Western world has a different meaning than what is actually has for us. It's a difference again. But the desire comes up from here because like, okay, when you don't let me to talk, then this structure, this political structure, it doesn't belong to me. I don't feel myself here. Which also the regime itself created this atmosphere all these years that there is an Iran that is belong to them. There is a kind of culture that it's just belong to them, a narrative of Islamic Shiism that they know what it is and they impose it on everybody. If you are agrees, then you are agree. If you are not agrees, then you are something else. You don't belong to this community, to this society, and they externalize you. And as has been mentioned also, Iran is a diverse society. You have different kind of religion. You have in Islam, you have Sunni people. You know, in Sunni, you have different type of beliefs. All of them have been oppressed, and there is no free space. There is no data space that people can discuss them. They can talk about these issues. So society feel itself in a trap that there is no, it's impossible to rise for any issue, for any problem. And each time that there is a protest, a big protest, because we always have protests for many different issues, always in different cities, in different regions, we always have protests. Each one of them depends the situation. The oppression also is different. Like in Kurdistan, always is you are dealing with weapon, not from the protesters. Always the answer from the regime is weapon. It's brutal oppression, always in Arab region, in Baloch region, always. You go to other cities in Tehran, especially as a capital, well, the answer is different to the demonstrations. But we always have demonstration. To just mention and give some statistics, in 2024, we had more than 2,600 worker strikes and protests only, just from this. In 2025, okay, it was war also. We had some other issues that came up. We have more than 1,600 protest strikes, you know, gathering by workers. Every week almost we had a gathering by retirees in many cities, by teachers in many cities. So we have always, you know, it's just continued. So, you know, here the question is that what happens that no longer this society feel itself that is a part of this community, this society. And you know, here also I have to mention this, the meaning of country, national, um, being Iranian. It's the meaning is also changing for many people here. Who belongs itself, who feel that belongs to Iran, who feels that they are Iranian. If you ask this question in Kurdistan, they give you a different answer. In Baluchistan, they give you a different answer. We have more than 100,000 Baluch people that they are not recognized as Iranian citizens. They don't have documents. It's unbelievable, but we have these issues for a long time. It's more than 4 or 5 decades now, from Shah until now. And it just continue. So who is going to answer these issues? And when they rise to question, when they protest, there's one answer always, that accusing for foreign interfere, for manipulation, and etc. and etc. So we don't have a space to discuss them, to talk about them. And for us as Iranian, finding an answer for this question, that what we want, is very different than someone from outside looking to this society that is always protesting, is something else. And the simple answer here is just the right to organize ourselves, the right to having a political party, the right of freedom of speech. So we can talk, we can share what we want actually. To give you one simple example, just during this 1 month war, brutal war against Iran, uh, many political groups in London, they gathered and they organized the Congress of Free Iran. Many political parties, I don't want to go into it that who were these people, but it was something for the first time actually happened, that so many Iranian opponents from different political parties, different ideologies, different visions for Iran, they came in a one place, in the same roof, and talk, just sharing what is their desire. And it's for the first time. And something that me personally, I was thinking is, I wish this wouldn't happen in London. This should happen in Tehran, in our own country, that we can discuss them, we can talk to them. But when you are dealing with the system that is just telling you, no, we are Muslim, Shia, and nothing else, and this picture has also bought very easily by this orientalistic mentality in the West, that they just saying like, that's what you are, this is you. Whatever sakes is imposed, it comes from somewhere else. It's make it very difficult for us to simply and easily talk about them. So this is one thing, this is something that just comes to my mind to answer this question, what Iranian people want. At the moment, I think there is this point of a war, actually. We can discuss why some segments of the society eventually asked, for this war, because, what United States and Israel are saying and what Iranian people are saying against the regime in one historical moments came together. So it's understandable why there is a segment of the society that is saying, okay, bomb it, okay, attack. But the reality is that never, ever any society, any country would be released by war, especially when they're bombing their infrastructures, schools. They killed so many children and so many other stuff. Uh, I don't see this as a way, as a path that it brings something for us, which is it's very dangerous. But I can also understand that why so many people, including my friends, families, also, they feel it and they ask for this. But I think we as people who are active in society, we have a vision, we have a different responsibility how we act on this. Because in general, people, society, they ask for so many things. They have a different desire, but it's responsibility of, I don't know, activists, journalists, elites, academicians, that how you shape it, how you describe it, how you try to make people to have knowledge on the issues and understand it, how they have to answer it. These are different stuff. Um, this is at the moment, I think this is what I can answer on what is the Iranian desire, what Iranian people wants now.
Thank you. Whenever there are discussions on protest within Iran and describing it as something new, I like to mention about tobacco protests in 1872 in Iran, and then plenty of protests during the Iranian history. And, whenever there are statements that the Iranians don't have voice to say what they truly want, the contra argument coming from the regime supporters is that the elections in Iran are unpredictable. But I like this statement coming from Karim Sajadpour, who says Iranian elections are unfair, unfree, but unpredictable. So in this kind of dualism, when you have this unpredictability, but within the system of unfair and unfree context, it's very difficult to speak, of course, about the desire of the people of Iran. But I have another triggering question for you, Ludwika. You mentioned about this Orientalistic view when it comes to Iranian people and especially also Iranian women. Your last book is about women in Afghanistan, and I want you to have these parallels because I guess another Orientalistic view when it comes to Iranian women is portraying all the women living in Islamic countries as being the same and having or not having the same rights. Do you feel also the same situation in Poland, or are there understanding of very feminine society of Iran, many fields of economy and different spheres of the society where Iranian women are very active, unlike women in Afghanistan or in Arabic countries? Or do we have the same Orientalistic view?
Anna, for the question. I always like to tell my students an anecdote, but an anecdote which I find is very, well, explains a lot. I have a lecture about women's rights in Afghanistan, Iran, and Central Asia. And I always tell the story of an Afghan women's rights activist, Soraya Sorabi, and she was in Iran. And actually, many of those women's rights activists I describe in my book, they spent some time in Iran or during the civil war or during the Taliban first regime. And for all of them, coming back from Iran to Afghanistan was like a shock. One of them was really amazed, but in the bad way, that when they, during her like first few days in Afghanistan, they went to visit their cousins. And there was a question to move from one house to another, from one cousins to another. And there was an uncle coming with his car, and he invited everybody to the car, and the men, they seated on seats, and women were invited to the back of the car, to the back of the car. And she was really shocked because in Iran, it would be like unimaginable, yes, such a division. And another woman remembers Iran and her academic life in Iran as a kind of the most emancipatory and the happiest part of her life, comparing to what has happened to her in Afghanistan. And it was in this Afghan Islamic Republic, this liberal system, yes. And if and I actually the legal the legal system of Iran, as I always perceive it, is behind the people. And people are like, social rules are much more liberal than the system itself. And in Afghanistan, under this Islamic Republic, under this pro-Western, pro-American regime, it was totally the other way around. So from the legal point of view, you could do a lot of things, but in reality, you couldn't. You couldn't even go to a park alone, or you couldn't do jogging in the morning, or you couldn't go to the cinema, although you had women's rights in the constitution, yes. Nowadays, of course, it has changed, but Of course, there is this, let's say, very denigrating kind of narrative concerning Muslim women, yes, and those white men and white women as well, whose main role is to liberate the Muslim, the Western Asian or Middle Eastern, whatever you call them, women. Not because they care so much about, yes, not because they care so much about the women, but because they want to prove their, let's say, superiority over the local men, of course. But the problem is, I would like to also to get back to your previous question and to get back to history, that generally it's not that a system is like, let's say people, okay, let's have this kind of system and let's build it, because system is being built step by step. In Iran in 1979, we also had this referendum, yes, and the question whether you are for the Islamic Republic, yes, and everybody voted for Jamhuriya Islami, yes, everybody. But the problem was huge because different people understood different things by the very term of what is Islamic Republic, yes, and for most of the people, it just they just believed it's going to be a fair democratic system which will recognize the dignity of every citizen, yes. And later on, the whole system was created, this theocratic kind of system, and the problem is that the democratic mechanisms were stopped at the very same moment. The unliberal, I mean, the system was not liberal, so there was no place for discussion. There was no place for kind of adapting the system to the will of the society, because democracy was not at place, yes. And it is exactly what you said, that, well, yes, we have elections in Iran, yes, but these are certainly not free. I mean, there is no democracy where there is Shoroye Negahbon, which tells you who you may choose or not choose, yes. And actually, whoever candidates may be just taken off from the run, because for the given moment he or she is believed not to be the appropriate person to run for a certain post. So I believe that asking this question, what the Iranian people want, is maybe its very nature is not. I mean, this is not the way we should ask the question. Because well, we have transformation, yes, in Poland, and Poland nowadays, it's a totally different country from what we had 35 years ago. And this system was kind of adapted to people's will. And after every democratic election, it was kind of changed. At first, it was very liberal from the economic point of view. Then there was this will to make it a little bit more, let's say, it was very vulnerable for lots of social classes, so they had to kind of constrain this liberal approach and become more social. And of course, even in democracies, no one is never pleased. Yes, people have really lots of things to not to be satisfied with the political system, but it is something which like constantly changes. And if you take those people who went to the streets in Iran, and what Siyovash said, yes, that we had those demonstrations like every every single day there was a gathering, there was a demonstration for the last 5 or 6 years, and they were like very tiny groupings of people demanding this or that, and of course, Western media were not informing about what's going on. I think even Iranians in the big cities, they were not maybe aware of the fact that this, let's say, wave of being unsatisfied with the very how the state is functioning was growing and growing bigger and bigger. But and one of those orientalizing strategies is also perceiving the Iranian nation as a monolith, yes? And all of you've been mentioning the fact that this is a very diversified society. And not only from the religious point of view, not only from the ethnic point of view, but also from the class point of view. We have different social strata, we have different classes, and only with well-functioning democracy, a system can get a certain balance. And of course, it's never perfect, yes? It's never perfect, and even the oldest democracies in the world have this problem that the 100% deliberative democracy does not exist, because not everybody has the same, let's say, opportunity, yes, to give her or his will. But I think it's we have to turn the way we look at it. I think it's good that we, at this point, we don't even know what the Iranians want, because it's obvious that after 47 years of dictatorship, they don't have a ready to start a recipe, yes, of what to do with the Iranian political system. And we needed just a debate, yes, and it's a process. Yeah, it's more or less what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you, Ludwika. You mentioned the referendum after the Islamic Revolution, that the majority of people either didn't know what the Islamic Republic meant, or they had different explanation to that. And at least they didn't know it will not be a democracy, because there is also a fact that there were discussions how to name the future republic, and there was a demand to name it Islamic Democratic Republic of Iran. And the answer from Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, was that when we say Islamic, it means also democratic. So I don't think that there were too much people who knew what Islamic democracy will mean afterwards. So, Babak, when speaking or discussing about political identity of Iranians after the Islamic Revolution, historian Mohsen Milani says that there are 4 layers of political identity: Iranian identity, Islamic, Shia identity, and revolutionary identity. When we are looking at the recent demonstrations, with majority of them having this flag of Shiro Khorshid, is it true perception that this is more about Iranian identity than about demanding the son of the Shah to come back to Iran? What's your analysis concerning that demand of having more Iranian symbols in the demonstrations?
Okay, thank you for that question, which is a great question, and which is being discussed in the Iranian circles to huge extent, and everybody's talking about that. So my opinion, I want to go back to what I said about the regime that holds power in Iran. So if you understand that regime as a movement and not as a government, but a conventional government, uh, what I see in the streets and what I like, I observe these slogans that the people are chanting, and they are the demands that they are chanting in the streets. So for me, that's a good identifier of like what do people want. But what I see through all these slogans, through all these chants, that so they include this is the final battle, Pahlavi will return, or all sorts of, and we had like I don't see these as separated from the previous movements and previous demonstrations. So these are all demands of a body of uh, people that we call Iranians. And they are like women life freedom is not separate from Pahlavi Barmigerde or Pahlavi will return, in my opinion. So what I see in totality of all these people chanting their demands in the street, and then diaspora taking those demands and then amplifying them here in outside of Iran, is a demand for changing this regime. But why is that? So uh, we have the we have also another debate about whether we can reform this regime or we need to get rid of it. Okay, so when it comes to that, which is part of our lives as Iranians, like every single one of us, we have experienced the reformation, so-called reformation, or the reformist era. And every single one of them, one of us, we had different opinions in that era. Some were active in one way or another as an activist. Some were journalists. Some were different um, ways of taking action. But all our goal in totality, our goal was to reform this. Okay. But all of us know that it failed. And it failed utterly. It failed uh, catastrophically. And I believe the failure of those attempts, which I am one of I have a part in it, was we weren't to blame. It was the failure became evident and became proven in the January massacre. So the regime showed that there's no place, as Siavash mentioned here, like when you talk about anything, like you're talking about the children being executed. Like in 20, these recent development, recent news, it was that in 2025, the regime executed 1,639 people, which is a new record for the regime itself. And the regime is executing at the moment, at this very moment that we are sitting here, people are waiting to be executed. And lots of these are children. They are 16 years old, 15 years old. Okay. But whenever there's not a single, there's not the smallest room to challenge and talk about any of these with a regime that uh, blocks every way of reform. Okay. And as Yavash mentioned, like they immediately, like lots of the people who are getting executed in these days, the protesters, their crime is muharebe, which means war against God. Like how can you define war against God? You know, it's not a single. The crime doesn't have any specific definition. They can just accuse you of it and they execute you without due process, and it's very easy for them. There is no room for reform here to say like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's reform it a bit. To There is no room when you're accused of war against God. Okay. So going back to uh, what I said about the regime, um, in my opinion, the attempt to reform this regime, this movement, into a government is as if you're trying to, uh, reform a fire into a building. And the reason for that is the movement needs motion. It needs to be on the move all the time, and it feeds on instability. The government needs to be stable. So what the Iranian people want, first and foremost, I agree with Ludwika. There are so many like the diversity between like the opinion, a diversity of opinion and the demands and religions and the languages in Iran is mind blowing. I myself, I'm a Turk from Iran. I grew up in a region that my best friend was Kurd. Like I had three best friends, all of them were Kurds, and I speak Farsi. And then I come from a region in Iran that I was in close relationship with Armenian friends, and I'm a translator. I've translated extensively on the Armenian genocide, and I became known in those circles. And I see that they like even a small society like the Armenians in Iran, they are uh, vastly diverse. So you cannot say that there's like one demand and everybody wants it and the other demands doesn't matter. Or no, every single demand matters, and there's a diversity and a wide range of demands. But there's one single demand that, uh, if realized, will let us go in the path of realizing all other demands, and that's having a government, a governance, a governing body. Okay, so when you have that, and it doesn't even matter if it's a good one, because we don't have any. Like it's not the selection between a good and bad government. It's a selection between having a government or being ruled by a movement that, as you mentioned, like those four uh, bases of the Iranian identity. Uh, this movement identifies with it from the beginning. It hasn't identified with the Iranian identity or Iranian symbols, and tried whenever it could to deny those for the people. Okay, even for the Islamic, like nowadays we can see that like if you are an Islamic movement and if you truly believe in Islam, how come that you're killing other Muslims in the streets? How come a Muslim can kill another Muslim? That's a huge thing in Islam. You have preached for many, many years that we have to have this movement, and we need to we need to kill the infidels. We need to suppress the infidels. But these are not infidels. These are your fellow Muslims. Okay, so even the Islamic identity shatters here. Okay, so what remains in the end is the revolutionary identity, which I believe it's attributed to the regime, and the Iranian people are fed up with having a ruling body, a ruling entity that doesn't care about their welfare, doesn't care about their freedoms, and the only thing that it cares is its mission overseas. And just to end with this, that in my view, what people of Iran want, and I've heard this from lots of people in Iran, and I'm hearing this from family, friends, and I do believe in this, is to be free, to live without the shadow of the politics. looming over their lives every waking moment. So I think this is the most important thing. They want to be free to choose. They don't have that freedom to choose. Even to they want freedom to make mistakes. And to go back to your question that you said, the chants in the streets are calling for the crown prince to go back to Iran, or they are returning to the Iranian identity. I believe, but I can deny that some people want the crown prince back, you know? And I don't have any statistics to say if they are the majority or minority. I can see his name is the only name that is being chanted in all of these demonstrations, okay? I can observe that. I'm no monarchist, but I can observe that, I can see that. But in wanting Pahlavi, in wanting that person, and he has said multiple times that he doesn't want to rule. He wants to lead the way to a new democratic government. But like in wanting that, I believe every single person that is who's going on those demonstrations, they want that future, that they have a government, they can choose, they can freely, they can finally go back to their lives and don't care about the politics. I've seen here in demonstrations in Toronto, I've talked to many people who were choosing some of the slogans that are being made, is saying that, oh no, I do not identify with this one, so I don't shout that one or say. And I've seen people who were leftists. I've seen people who were, wearing hijab. They were Islamists, and there are all sorts of people that they believe in Islam. They believe in, leftist ideologies. They believe in, and also the monarchists. But all of them demonstrating in the street under one single demand, which is to remove the barrier to realize that moment, as Ludwika mentioned, to realize that moment that we can all sit together and talk about what are our plans for the future. We don't have that because the regime is cutting every single way of realizing that. Just to end this, sorry, I said that I would end it, but I will end it this time, I promise. In the words of Shaheen Wahid Parast, he was executed. He was one of the protesters executed recently. His last word was, let's end this. Let's put an end to this collective humiliation.
Thank you, Babak. Thanks for this very important and very interesting discussion. We will have another round of final words for 3-4 minutes, but maybe I will put a question. So we tried to not discuss geopolitics, but to discuss the society, the culture, the history. But we are in a reality that we have now ceasefire between Iran and USA, Iran and Israel. And we have also some voices from the regime itself who speak about the necessity of reforms. Javad Zarif had article in Foreign Affairs speaking about this necessity and necessity of compromise. We have also an open letter from Rouhani, previous president of Iran, and also current President Pezeshkian speaks about the necessity of reforms. So can we also have some kind of hope that first this kind of deal between Iran and USA and not and the war will not continue, and second, will that deal, whatever it will be, will it bring some kind of hope also for the society of Iran? I know this is another stereotypical question triggering you, but this is why I am here, to trigger you to speak about this very hard, but I guess important questions also. Siavush?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a question that I have written like I think 4 articles on this in the past 2, 3 weeks, actually. And I had a very interesting interview with Professor Yasmin Mizer, also from Oxford University, on this very topic that also Babak mentioned it about the Iranian identity on the same topic. So, well, as far as is related to geopolitics, there is one reality now. Iran, as a geopolitical body, could win something in this war, but this win has a limitation. Like you cannot play a lot with Strait of Hormuz. I mean, now it's give us a power. We had 7% power on energy, world energy, which it was Iranian oil. Now it's 20% more, and etc. 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 This is power, but this has a limitation. So I hope that these politicians will understand it. However, what I absorb on media and domestic media, I don't believe it, unfortunately. And we, in the history, especially in the history of the Islamic regime, we lost so many opportunities like this, especially during Iran-Iraq war. I mean, the war could finish uh, before long, 8 years. It was possibility, but they had this ideology and this fantasy of liberating the world and bringing Islamic justice. I mean, their own narrative of Islamic Shiism justice, which is very different from the narrative that I grown up with it. It's very different. So I hope that they,
Category.
yes, I mean, they have a very different vision, which when I went to university in Tehran and I confronted this vision, it was very weird for me because like it's two different Islam, it's two different Shiism. Why they're like this? And I have also other friends which we were sharing so many things. So I hope that they will realize it, they understand it, and don't bring a damage, a big damage, more than this for our society. But when we're talking about reform or change, we have to be really realistic. With Islamic Republic, no, it's impossible. Their vision of reform, even someone like Jawad Zarif is talking, is not that including, let's say, socialist, seculars, liberal. It's not that. It's reform among of their segments. Those who in this 15 years, especially these past 10 years, has been excluded, they can return. They can come back, they can, have some open and discuss. Let's not forget also, if today we see a different picture in Iranian streets, that women are more free, not in all cities also, as I have to say it, not everywhere. And when I'm saying free, I mean the dress, the scarf, the hijab, not the rest. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, hijab is one problem. It was one issue. In Iranian labor market, this is state statistics. You can make research, anyone who is watching this. State statistics is suggesting that only less than 40% of Iranian economic is running by women. This is a big gap. This is a huge discrimination. Anybody, any observers who's looking to this number have to understand what is the reality of life for women in Iran. Of course, you have well-educated people. I mean, this is something. I mean, like, it exists, of course. But when you came to these specific topics, when you came to this, daily life, there it shows itself where you are. The law about divorce, about children custody, and so many things. I mean, we have a huge discrimination that you cannot just saying like simply this will change or we are gonna have a reform. So no, with this Islamic Republic, as far as a theocracy that exists, and with elites, oligarch elites of IRGC, no, it's impossible. So what is the demand is that it's need a huge change on everything. I mean, here is someone maybe don't like it, someone maybe have a different idea, but this itself is a revolution. You know, you re-evaluate what needed to be changed in 79 actually. But we had, you know, this domination of the Islamic movement, which I agree with Babak here. You know, it's a political movement came, gained the power, oppressing the others, and after that it was war, which Khomeini, you know, never forget that Khomeini said this is a gift from Allah because you know, it was easily oppressing everybody. And this time also, because you know, we had a big movement. Let's not forgetting what United States, Trump, Netanyahu from Israel, what they said is also crime. They interfere in a democratic movement and they destroy it. They weaken it. It's a crime itself and they welcome it. I mean, the regime welcome to this interfere because it's much easier to convince and killing people and convincing that why this violence is needed. All these type of regimes always they go for this. So to put this final answer from my side is that I don't go with the narrative of people like Zarif and they are the constructor of this despotism, this dictatorship in Iran. I don't believe in him. But, you know, in the geopolitics and what should have happen with the West, with this war, they must come to conclusion. And I hope that there are smart people, there are dictators, there are oppressors, but there are also very smart people, well-educated people. I hope they won't go into the narrative of this war-mongering of, you know, Muhafazakars, the conservatives, the hardliners, that they just asking for more war for liberating the rest of the world. I don't know for which purposes, but I hope they won't go to that direction and come to some conclusion and put end on this. And we have to see, because I do believe the Iranian society will not stay silent. For sure, we're gonna have again protest and uprising and demonstration, definitely.
Thank you, Siavush. And we came to our title of the discussion, sovereignty or freedom. You can have geopolitical tools and have your sovereignty, but it doesn't mean it will bring also freedom to the people of the country, right? Ludwika, your final remarks.
I think that generally sovereignty and freedom, it goes together, because the very fact that Iranian regime kind of sustained and was not destroyed by Trump and Netanyahu does not necessarily mean that that Iran is free, yes, and sovereignty concerns not those who govern, but concerns the nation in the traditional, let's say, saying, or better, maybe we should say the society. And for now, I don't believe the Iranian nation is the society of Iran cannot exert its sovereignty, because the foreign policy of the Iranian regime is probably, yes, not what Iranians are mostly interested in. But I'm very pessimistic as far as the war impacts let's say the faith of Iranian way toward democracy, because actually the war and what has happened was the illustration to what the regime kept saying for so many years. Yes, Ali Khamenei was threatening Iranians with Israel, and finally he got killed by Israel. Mm, they kept saying that let's say of course openly no one says Iranian is building atomic bomb, but now we can see that states which have atomic weapon, they do what they want, yes. And no one so this policy of strength and of imposing the will of states which are just more powerful than the others is taking place. And it only leads to the fact that this, let's say, military leg of the regime is getting stronger than ever, I guess. And we have many proofs of that. The fact that it was Mujtaba Khamenei who was elected for Rahbar, and no one even knows what's going on with him. Yes, and I think, of course, the regime tries to play this, let's say, duality. Yes, we have this very nice Pezeshkian going into the streets with flowers, kissing with people, and being so friendly and smiling. But to me, it's a game. It's just a game, but the support is more stronger than ever, and and I think Iran will move toward a military regime. It's not even now. It's not a theocracy, yes, because I mean legally it's a theocracy, but in fact. This is not about religious, let's say, values, and this is about something else, yes. And exercising power, it's not based on who's best Shia theologies. It's based on who's more powerful and has more money. And I mean, we've been mentioning Sepoch here many times, and I think this is the key to understand the situation of Iran. And unfortunately, the war just made it even more powerful than before, which does not mean that I also agree with Siyovash that demonstrations this is not the end. I mean, because the regime has less and less legitimacy and not more and more, yes. So there will be another occasions, there will be another things triggering the society, and people will come sooner or later into the streets again.
Thank you, Ludwika, very much. Babak, during your final remarks, could you please elaborate also on the fact that coming back to the security challenges we have in Armenia when it comes to developments in Iran, the main fear in Armenia is that if there will be a prolonged war and another wave of demonstrations, there can be also irredentist movements. It's, of course, another topic of discussion. Will these movements end up with separate states, and will those states have some kind of security issues with the other states in the region? It's another topic of discussion. But do you believe that this fear of irredentist movements is actually there, or is it something also out of the Iranian context?
Thank you for the question. I believe the fear is always there. Like I cannot say that this is not gonna happen, and especially in that region. But if you look at, I'm trying to answer this question with also adding to the previous question where Ludwika and Siavash beautifully mentioned almost everything. But because I have a bit of more, I guess, optimistic view and take on this, I just want to add that. Which I believe is the same question, same answer to your current question. So I believe the movement that rules Iran, the Islamic regime, has four key foundations where it stands. The first one is as we discussed and we talked about it, is the suppressing and denying of the national identity. So for the movement to success and to move forward, there shouldn't be any national identity. So not even and perhaps like when there's no national identity, there's no ethnic identity, there's no identity other than identifying with the mission of that movement. The second thing is the sanctification of death, which is huge in Iran, which is huge in the educational system that this regime has built over the years. I've grown up under this regime, and I've learned in the streets, and like in the morning we had two chants that every single morning we had to chant those. First was for a while it was Death to America, so we learned first how to wish death to somebody else or to an entire nation. And the second one was the second one was asking God to save the revolution until Imam Mahdi arrives. So these two were embedded in the Islamic regime and in the RGC's mission and identity. The third one is a non-centralized power structure based on a military structure, based on militias, based on the proxies all over the world, and especially in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon. And the last one is the financial apparatus that they need money to survive. So this big machine, it needs money to survive. And it tries, and it has tried for many years, for 47 years, to get its hands on every single dollar that it can from anywhere that it can. And in the end, it means that getting that from the pocket of the people. For many years, they are depriving the people from the basic means of life because they need to feed that machine with the money it needs. So when it comes to the war that is happening, I don't want to see this war as, first of all, I don't see this war as happening 45 to 47 days ago. This has started 47 years ago. So I see this as part of the war that we are fighting against this movement, against this revolution, against this entity. And this is going on. And as Siavash and Ludwika mentioned, we are going to see the protests. We are going to see the people coming to the scene as the actors. So what war does, and this, it's not just this war for 47 days, it's the previous war, those like 12 days, and also the war that Israel is waging against the Houthis, against the Hezbollah, against the Hamas. So all of these proxies and the war that is going on against them is shrinking this regime's reach all over the world. Like when they started to negotiate for these ceasefires, their first and most like the main demand that they said that without that they won't negotiate is that Hezbollah should be part of this negotiation. People of Iran are not part of the negotiation. Cutting or like opening up the internet access is not part of the negotiation. Nothing about the Iranian people is part of the negotiation, but Hezbollah is part of the negotiation and should be, because they are reliant on that. So the movement, this big monster is shrinking, and now it has shrunk to its core, which is in Iran. Okay. The second thing is with the war and also with the sanctions and other measures, the fourth foundation, which was the financial apparatus, that is also shrinking as well. So the Hashtashabis are now in the streets of Tehran and major cities in Iran, and they are harassing women, Iranian women in the streets, in their roadblocks. But they're not going to stay there if they're not getting paid. So they need to get paid. So this machine needs huge sums of money to keep going like this. And that is another thing that can be addressed, that can be attacked, and that can be, the regime can be defeated in that ground. The second thing, I believe the second foundation, the first and second foundations are where the Iranian people come into play. The first one is the national identity. The national identity we are seeing in the unity that has been created between the Iranian inside and outside. And by the way, the regime is trying its best to portray diaspora as people who do not know anything about Iran, who do not know the facts, and they are away from the reality because this unity,
And they don't care about
considering
Iran also from their
or
point of view.
don't care. Yeah, they are not there dying, and I was just thinking like the regime is saying that you're not here dying under the bombs, but I know people who have come like they have immigrated recently, and they were there when the COVID hit, and people were dying here and there when the supreme leader said, no, you're not importing any vaccines from outside. So it's not that it's just 47 days. We have been seeing all these for 47 years. So going back to that national identity, which comes from understanding each other, knowing each other, and also contradicting each other, having different opinions, that diversity is the beauty of the Iranian community, inside and outside. We don't have to like all agree on something. We can have different opinions, and that's the beauty of it. We will have different opinions when the regime changes and we have governance and we will work to better our lives. We need that. We need to stand side by side, monarchists, socialists, everyone. Like we need to stand side by side and debate and reach to that to something that is best in best interest of our people. The second one is also a very big foundation, which is shattered altogether, in my opinion, and that's the sanctification of death. And this, like, the regime has tried by different means, by street carnivals and like different educational systems, educational material to sanctify death and to denigrate and to devalue the joys of life. And people are doing that exactly, and they have started for many years now. They are sharing how they find life enjoyable. They are, when it's not from joy, but when a mother dances um, on the grave of her children who was shot dead in the street, that's to show the regime that I'm not going to do whatever you think that I'm going to do, that you're forcing me to do. I'm not going to mourn the way that you're forcing me to do. I'm going to dance on my child's grave, and I will dance on your grave soon. So whether war facilitated this, whether it pushed us back in many years, in my opinion, no, it's not that. We might not be at the same place in some regards where we were before the war, but on many other grounds, we are ahead. Regime is weaker than before because its image has been shattered. Its financial resources has been shattered. And most important, most importantly, its image of invincibility has been shattered. For many, many years, we had this supreme leader that, he was in power and they were killing people in the streets and he was just in power. But now he's gone and many others are gone. And we only have like this facade of again, like that facade is there, like government, like we still have the parliament, we have the president, but there's this joke going around and people are talking inside Iran and outside that when they went to for the negotiations in Pakistan, they didn't involve they took 70 people, but they didn't bring President Pezeshkian. So they keep people are saying that this guy is nobody. This guy nobody even informs him that what is going on. So we have seen this for many years. We have seen it under Khatami, we have seen it under Rouhani, and now Pezeshkian. And this is like a common uh, uh, assumption between Iranians that these people do not make decisions. Decisions are being made, and they are just some puppets that playing their roles. And on the other hand, with the deal and with the everything, I just say one thing that Galibaf is the face of this negotiation and the deal right now. And as a student, when he was when he and his thugs were tying up the students' hands and legs and throwing them off roofs, which by the way has a video. They videotaped it. They themselves videotaped it, and it's on YouTube. That's the image of this person that comes to my mind, and I believe I'm sure many other people. So I don't see any reform or any moderate person there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, it's very difficult with too much big monsters in the world to have an optimistic discussion about not only future of Iran, but also future of our region and the world. But it was my pleasure to moderate this panel. Thank you so much for your very important insights. Thank you, and I'm sure our participants also enjoyed our discussion, and I hope we will still have an opportunity to meet and discuss, and I hope that let's hope that we will have not only peace in the region, but also a kind of peace that will bring also a freedom to the societies of the countries in the region and in the world. Thank you so much. Thank you, and goodbye. Mutşekerim.
Thank you so much for it. It was really, really interesting discussion, and with your four very different voices, I really, really enjoyed it. Till the next time then. Bye.
See you.